2023 was a landmark year for gaming. Across 12 months we had Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Wonder, Starfield, Dead Space, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and of course, the universally adored Game of the Year.
And the Game of the Year is...
We all know what it is, come on. Tell me.
Baldur's Gate 3.
No! 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 It's Spider-Man! It's Spider-Man! It's Spider-Man!
I'll never get tired of dunking on that guy. It was a year where games were never better, but the industry was at its worst. Microsoft continued to assert its unbridled dominance over game development by absorbing Activision Blizzard. The Embracer Group overextended their reach, snapping up dozens of developers only to have to close studios and make thousands of people redundant due to their investment deal collapsing. Amazon, Ubisoft, Epic, Niantic, many more laid off staff in a dreadful reorganising of the industry workforce that's only gotten worse into 2024. This is not to mention the efforts of staff under the Activision Blizzard banner trying to unionise for better conditions and being met with union busting and strike breaking from the publishers. Capitalism has never been worse for the industry. The line must always go up, and the corporations will constantly fight for market dominance. How apt then that in 2023, FromSoftware released Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. Armored Core 6, if you aren't aware of it, is a mecha action game and the 16th game in a series going all the way back to 1997 on the original PlayStation. It's the first entry in the series after a decade-long hiatus, following the critically middling Verdict Day, and FromSoftware's decision to focus on the Souls franchise. Set in a distant future where humanity has become interstellar, Armored Core 6 has you playing as an independent mercenary, a gun for hire who will spend the game working for whichever corporation is willing to pay for some casual violence. Doesn't matter who you work for, as long as they have the credits to pay you. The world of Armored Core has no room for morals, only brutal efficiency and several metric tons of ammunition. This is your warning, I'm going to be going into heavy spoilers for Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon, covering the story, some of the lore, and all of the 3 possible endings to the game. Armored Core 6 casts you into the mech of independent mercenary C621, a 4th generation augmented human who has been brought by his handler, Walter, to the planet of Rubicon 3. Rubicon in the game's history was once the source of a nearly magical resource called coral. It's used as an unending energy source, food, a powerful narcotic, a method of data transfer, and part of the augmentation process to allow humans to control and survive armoured cores, or ACs. The discovery of coral created a new golden age for humanity. Huge technological leaps happened. Humanity colonised the stars. It was a time of wealth and prosperity. Until it all caught fire. An event called the Fires of Ibis destroyed Rubicon 3. The coral was ignited, burning the planet's surface to ash and spreading out to the local star cluster, damaging other planets in the system and immediately cutting humanity off from the power of the coral. It was all thought to have burned, destroying the galactic economy, bringing technological advancements to a grinding halt, and leaving Rubicon 3 abandoned by all except the hardiest of survivors who had called the planet their home. Rubicon was closed down, blockaded, and left to be forgotten at the edge of human colonised space. 50 years later, though, a faint trace of coral was found. And even though the planet had been marked out of bounds by the Planetary Closure Authority, the corporations couldn't help themselves. The sheer value of even a scrap of coral was worth starting a war over. Almost immediately, the Schneider Group and Darfung descended on Rubicon, bringing their mercenary groups, Arquebus and Balaam, respectively, to start surveying the planet in search of the coral. The Rubiconians formed the Rubicon Liberation Front to try and fight the corporate soldiers, and a private military-fueled war broke out across the planet. And that's where we, as 621, come in. The game opens with us attempting to make a sneaky landing on Rubicon 3, only to be spotted and fired on by one of the PCA security satellites that orbit the planet.
Handler Walter verified. Activating cerebral coral control device. Augmented human C4621 has awakened.
Time to get to work, 621. I'm powering down your entry capsule. On my signal. Now, activate the AC.
Our first objective? We need a license. The All-Mind mercenary support system requires authentication for us to work. We're not aligned with any of the corporations in this war, so we'll need to scavenge a license to get started. This is our introduction to the first major area of Armored Core 6, the Contaminated City. This was once one of the most populated areas on the planet, home to hundreds of thousands of people working in the grids. By the time we arrive though, it's a shadow of its former self, a half-flooded ruin patrolled by the Rubicon Liberation Front. We fight against RLF mechs across the city, checking on the way of AC wrecks for licenses that we can use. Eventually we find ones in the remains of an AC high in a crater above the city, and we take on the call sign RB-23 Raven, only to be ambushed by the PCA's giant attack helicopter. Side note, how the hell does this thing fly? The size of a damn building! Look at its tiny rotors by comparison. This is our first boss, and one that proved to be a sticking point for a lot of people who hadn't played an Armored Core game before. You see, AC6 is closer to Ace Combat than it is to FromSoftware's Soulsborne series. You shouldn't be playing this game like a Dark Souls game, which I think threw a lot of players, certainly through me. It also doesn't help that the tutorial messages in the opening level don't really allude to how you'd fight this boss. It's a flying boss, so you'd be forgiven for thinking you need to dodge its attacks and blast it with missiles and your rifle from a distance. What you're actually supposed to do is fly right up to it and then use your sword to break its ACS meter. Think of the posture bar from Sekiro. And then pound it with bullets and missiles. And once you know how to do it, it's one of the easiest bosses in the game, but it was a major stumbling block for a lot of players when the game came out. But now that we have a license, it's probably worth spending a minute on what an AC actually is. An Armored Core is a walking battle tank that's a cut above your average mech. Every part of an AC is infinitely customizable, leading to their reputation as versatile and deadly machines of war. Each AC is piloted by a human being, likely augmented using technology derived from the coral, which allows them to not only interface with the machine, but survive the physical extremes that they'll be put through. Going from a full stop to blasting across the landscape at several hundred miles an hour in the blink of an eye is not good for our delicate meat suits. I don't care how hard you think you are. They're also massive. See those buildings I'm flying past? They're apartment blocks. On average, the ACs you build will be over 10 stories tall. Armored Core 6 has a weird relationship with scale. Your AC is nimble and responsive, and there are moments in the game where you feel like you're playing a game like Sekiro or Bayonetta. You forget the sheer size of the thing that you're piloting. You can look up in the sky in Chapter 1 and 2 and see the grid, a gargantuan industrial complex that stretches right around the planet, and it's hard to appreciate that it's nearly 5 miles above the surface of the planet. Oftentimes across my 3 playthroughs, I'd only just realised how big my AC was when I happened upon a random car or van in the environment, or noticed that I was skating over a motorway like it was a narrow pathway. It can be a bit of a headfuck at times. Part of the appeal of the Armored Core series is customization. Your AC is made out of 11 distinct components: 4 weapon slots, head, legs, chest, arms, boosters, control system, and generator. They can all be mixed and matched depending on your playstyle, mission requirements, or the difficulty level. The game allows you full freedom to approach each mission however you like, with only the first mission of a new game having a set AC, and only one of the mission prescribing you any piece of equipment, which we'll talk about later. As you work through the story and the arena, you'll earn credits to spend in the parts store. You unlock parts through both mission progression and hunting for hidden chests throughout some of the larger levels. There are nearly 300 individual parts, allowing for a ridiculous amount of customization options for your AC to suit any situation. When you build your AC, you also need to understand how to create a balanced build. All parts have a weight limit and an energy, or EN, cost. Generally speaking, the legs you pick for each build will determine the rest of the parts you can use. For instance, if you choose a pair of light reverse joint legs, you can build a super light and agile AC, but it'll be really easy to overburden yourself, so you're limited to lighter weapons. No double chain guns for you, sonny boy. Conversely, if you use tank treads or tetrapod legs, you can stack yourself up with enough weapons to wage a galactic war by yourself, but you'll be slower and you'll spend far more EN to fly or dodge. Then you need to consider the resistances and weaknesses of the parts you're choosing. Some manufacturers give you parts that will be resistant to certain damage types. Some will be able to tank projectile weapons, but will result in you taking huge amounts of energy damage, for instance. It's all a balancing act. This menu is what you'll spend a huge chunk of your time in the game looking at. When it clicks with you, it's a deep and satisfying sub-game as you min-max your build to try and gain even the slightest edge over the ridiculous machines you'll be fighting across the 5 chapters of the game. And while it's entirely possible to brute force your way through the campaign with a single build, the real fun of Armored Core is getting the right build for the job at hand. Chapter 1 is all about 621 building their rep. You'll be introduced to the main factions, the Rubicon Liberation Front, Balaam's Red Guns, and Arquebus's Vespers. Each faction representative will brief you on your mission and send you on your way.
Got a job for you, 621. It's an open call from the Arquebus Group, one of the extraplanetary corporate forces.
To all independent mercenaries, this request comes from Schneider of the Arquebus Group.
Got a job for you, 621. This is an open call from the Balaam Group, one of the corporate forces occupying Rubicon.
Attention all independent mercenaries! This request comes from our affiliate, Dafeng.
Got a job for you, 621. We've received a request from the Rubicon Liberation Front.
Raven, here's an operation that may be of interest to you.
Most of the missions in Chapter 1 are quite short and are geared around teaching the player one or more of the game's more obtuse mechanics. Grid 135 Cleanup, for instance, has you in an enclosed environment blowing up some Balaam MTs on behalf of Arquebus, and narratively acts as a way for Gun 1 Michigan to be made aware of 621's presence. This nets 621 a job to take out some RLF transport helicopters, and Walter tells us we're being asked for by name.
Now they're asking for you by name. Keep building your rep.
You'll spend most of Chapter 1 bouncing between Balaam and Arquebus, smashing each other up in what seems like a really futile use of credits. But who are we to complain about that? Chapter 1 has 3 missions that stand out as more than just tutorials though. Destroy the weaponized mining ship is the one most people will be familiar with. This mission was featured heavily in the early review and preview footage, and in retrospect I kinda wish they hadn't, because this mission is unique within Chapter 1, and having the surprise ruin takes away something of the impact, or at least it did for me. You start the mission in the desert, wind whipping up the sand around you. As you push forward, you encounter a handful of MTs that don't really pose much of a challenge until you get a warning siren on your HUD that something big is coming. Massive laser beam cuts through the desert, tracking you. If it hits you, you're stunned, and quite possibly dead depending on your build. You have to race across the dunes until the clouds part and you see the mining platform in all of its impossible stature. See, the mining platform is, well, gargantuan. It's a several mile long, over a mile high, massive walking machine, and your mission is to climb it and kill it. Damaging one of its legs gives you the opportunity to climb up and attack the beast, breaking some shield generators and then destroying the massive laser cannon that had previously been tracking you. FromSoftware have always been good at spectacle boss fights, and the weaponized mining platform is a strong statement of intent for this game.
See that, 621? The Strider's blowing itself up. A fitting end for something built to fail.
Some missions you'll be pairing up with faction members, such as Attack the Dam Complex, where you'll be fighting with 2 of the Red Guns, Gun 4 Volta and Gun 5 Iguazu. Remember him, he's important. You're given the honorary title of Gun 13, lucky for some.
I'll be sending 2 good-for-nothing maggots from the Red Guns, Gun 4 Volta and Gun 5 Iguazu. You're just gonna be tagging along on ass-wiping duty. I'm assigning you the call sign Gun 13, a lucky little number that just became available. Gun 13, sound off! Good enough. Now go get ready! We're going on a field trip, kiddo!
Iguazu isn't happy to be quote-unquote babysitting a mercenary on this mission, and makes a point of trying to put you down at every available opportunity.
Great. An independent merc. Who's the wise guy who decided the Red Gun should be taking care of some freelancer?
Who gives a shit? We'll handle this mission ourselves. Hope you're enjoying the field trip, kids. Don't wet your pants now.
Does this guy ever shut up?
Gunfire! No luck with a sewing club, I see. That attitude won't get you far on Rubicon. Hope you pilot better than you sew.
1 new message.
You got lucky, Merc. You were the only warm body they could find. The Red Guns are going to be first over the wall. Have fun watching from the sidelines.
Even at the very end of the mission, when you have destroyed all of the dam's generators and defeated the RLF AC near enough single-handed, neither Iguazu or Volta will offer you much in the way of congratulations. Thankfully, Gun 1 Michigan, leader of the Red Guns, is fighting your corner over comms throughout the mission, and he tells you can keep the Gun 13 rank. He's nice like that.
Confirmed. All targets destroyed. Looks like my good for nothings were good for something after all. Field trip's over. Gun 13. I'll keep that lucky call sign open for you.
Operation Wall Climber pairs you up with your first Vesper, and the closest thing 621 will find to a true friend on Rubicon 3, V4 Rusty. The Red Guns attempted to take the wall and failed miserably, losing several ACs in the process. The RLF have entrenched their position and are holding the wall. This is the most enemies you've gone up against in one mission. As you descend towards the wall, you're going to be shot at by MTs, cannons, missiles, and something high up above you. So it's probably not wise to go in for a frontal assault. But even once you get past the MTs and the cannons, you have a heavily armoured tetrapod mini-boss to deal with, flanked by snipers. And more cannons. And then you get inside the wall and you have several sets of MTs to deal with, and then there's a boss called the Juggernaut. Seriously, this thing's nuts. It's a classic tank boss where it has a single weak point and you need to get around its rear to stand a chance of doing any damage to it at all. Thankfully for this fight, you're not alone. No, Rusty arrives and acts as the bait to keep the Juggernaut distracted, allowing you to mete out some lovely destruction on its vulnerable weak spot. The Juggernaut will send out volleys of rockets, machine gun fire, and even landmines, but despite its size, there's almost a balletic quality about the fight when it's going well. However, halfway through the fight, Rusty is called away by his leader, V2 Snail, and you need to finish the fight alone. Hope you were paying attention in the first phase, because the Juggernaut gets faster and angrier when Rusty leaves. You've got to keep moving, try to bait out its charges and get behind for massive damage. Once you know how to do it, it's not too much of a problem, but the Juggernaut is definitely an early game skill check for new players. I definitely died a few times here, I'm not going to lie. But at least we got to meet Rusty. In fact, he called you after this mission to tell you that Arquebus called him away so that the Juggernaut would kill you. For what reason we aren't told, but it's nice to know what V2 Snail thinks of us.
We're war buddies now. I think I should tell you something. During Operation Wall Climber, Arquebus was planning to sacrifice you. The plan was to use independent mercenaries to clear the way so that the Vespers could step in and take over. But instead, you took the wall. The higher-ups are going to remember you now, that's for sure. As will I.
An interesting aspect to the Armored Core series is that you never see the humans behind the mechs. Ever since the first game, the story has been delivered via dialogue in briefings, debriefings, and radio chatter through the missions. The fact that Rusty has become such a community favourite is testament to the quality of the performance and the voice actor's direction. You have no reference for any character, there aren't even any character portraits. You come to know the NPCs in the game via their emblems and their AC designs. In general, the characters across the game are well written and brilliantly performed. Each performance marries with the writing so that you learn so much about the character even though they may only have a few lines of dialogue. V2 Snail's voice actor gives him an arch sneer. Snail plaintively looks down on Walter in 621 and doesn't even attempt to disguise his disgust at having to hire an independent mercenary to do work. Gunmon Michigan, leader of the Red Guns, is the polar opposite. He's brash, brazen, and has some of the best mid-mission chatter of any character in the game, regularly berating those under his command with witty insults and devastating put-downs. Honestly, I think he's my favourite character in the whole game. I never get bored of listening to him. 621's handler, Walter, has an almost fatherly tone to his voice. He's your boss, but unlike everyone else in the game, he seems to genuinely care for your well-being and will actively stand up for 621 when other characters try to underestimate or insult them. Towards the end of the chapter, we're tasked with checking out a weapons factory that the RLF depend on, which has gone silent. The Boars facility was once the source of the RLF's hardware to fight the corporations, but when we arrive it's dead silent. There's no one around and there's no sign of life. As we explore, we're attacked by something. Walter points out that there are encoded transmissions in the area. We realise we're being attacked by cloaked mechs. Yes, you heard that right, cloaked mechs. The ghosts aren't aligned to any of the factions we've met to this point, but they will become important further down the line. The ghosts are here for a reason though. As we get to the deepest part of the facility, we discover a hint of coral, which confirms to Handler Walter there's definitely a source of coral somewhere on the planet.
Is that a coral response? 621, get down and take a closer look. No doubt about it. This water. It contains faint traces of coral. Must have been an underground vein. House was hiding a well all this time.
Chapter 1 closes with 621 attacking a watchpoint facility in the ocean. The watchpoints once facilitated the flow of coral around the planet, and now they're used to monitor the dormant coralless veins. This is the first mission where we're not working for anyone. This is a favour for a friend of Walter's. As we approach the watchpoint, we're set upon by an AC piloted by Sulla, a mercenary who clearly has history with Handler Walter.
Attacking a watchpoint. You're incorrigible, Handler Walter. How many of your dogs must I kill before you learn?
As you battle Sulla, he tried to dissuade you from working with Walter. He goads you both, telling Walter he's killed the last 4 mercs he's brought to Rubicon 3. The fight starts to develop a picture that 621 is just the latest attempt, that Walter has been trying to get a foothold on Rubicon 3 for a long time. Once Sulla is defeated, we go to the watchpoint and we destroy the machine Walter asked us to, which turns out to be a bad idea. See, the coral wasn't entirely destroyed in the fire's vibers. In fact, enough of it survived to start self-replicating. You find out later in the game that when the coral converges together it will grow exponentially, to the point where it can escape the atmosphere of Rubicon 3. And when we destroy the watchpoint, we unleash it, blasting 621 with a massive dose of coral and throwing us onto the roof of the watchpoint.
Good job, 621. We're done here. Head back to base. Wait, no. 621, get out of there!
It's time to fight as we reach the final skill check of Chapter 1, Balteus. Balteus is a bastard of a fight when you're new to Armored Core. It's a nimble AI-controlled machine of death and destruction. Visually, it's spectacular, as it unleashes a phalanx of missiles that will smash through your armour and has the potential to stagger you instantly if they all connect. It can generate a shield, it has a shotgun, it has flamethrowers! Balteus is your first multi-phase fight in the game, and as you whittle down its HP it will change up its tactics or use new weapons to keep you on the back foot. You can be forgiven that Balteus is an AC. It's not. Rather, it's partly an MT, a muscle tracer, which in the fiction of Armored Core is a normal, non-modular mech that's usually either remote controlled or AI controlled. More accurately, Balteus is a weapons platform. It's designed to output as much damage as fast as possible. It has ridiculous aerial maneuverability and is more than capable of dodging slower attacks. It also happens to be the first enemy you encounter that can deploy an energy field. Balteus demands your attention. The key to defeating it is to keep moving. All of Balteus' attacks are designed to burn through your ACS meter, whether it's huge salvos of missiles that fill your screen, the handheld bazooka, the Gatling gun, or its shotguns. Balteus is tooled up to ruin your day in as many ways as possible. And that's just the first phase. In the second phase, it deploys its flamethrowers and area of effect explosions. FromSoftware are fond of an early to mid-game skill check boss. Sekiro has Genichiro, Bloodborne has Vicar Amelia, and Dark Souls has Ornstein and Smo. Balteus is the true test of your understanding of Armored Core 6. The key to defeating him is in your first runner's movement. Despite how they look, all of its attacks can be dodged. Guess even that massive missile salvo. The key to the fight is to build up its ACS meter as quickly as possible. It doesn't even matter what weapon loadout you use, the Balteus fight demands that you pressure it harder than it pressures you. Stay close, stay aggressive, and it'll fall. Once Balteus is dealt with, the new voice in your head, Air, will introduce herself properly.
Who are you? An older type of augmented human, 4th generation. Have we made contact? I am Air, a Rubiconian. Please, you must wake up. Before your consciousness is forever scattered in the coral flow.
Air is a Rubiconian. She comes from the planet, and she will warn you that the coral flow is dangerous and that your consciousness is at risk of being absorbed by it. It's a subtle but important hint about her true nature. Air is part of the coral. This is revealed slowly throughout the game, but the coral is sentient. In fact, it's more than just sentient, it's a collection of distinct personalities and souls, a truly alien life form where individuals exist as energy rather than having a physical form. When the fires of Ibis roiled over Rubicon, those who survived, whether they were just normal people or AC pilots, their consciousnesses were absorbed by the coral, and they became individuals within the stream. It's an absolutely mad concept for an alien species, but it's fascinating. Air is an alien in the way that we don't usually consider an energy-based life form, rather than the traditional science fiction trope of a carbon or a silicon-based life form. Air is somewhat of a deus ex machina within the story. Because she exists as energy and within 621's head, she has access to all of the systems, and I mean all of them. She can hack into Allmind, into Walter's messaging service, into every bit of the grid. She's obscenely helpful in every part of the game. She has knowledge of Rubicon that none of the corporations will be able to impart, and she also acts as an emotional foil to Walter. Where Walter can come off as cold, efficient and distant, Air is more genuinely involved in 621's well-being. Rusty might be your first friend on Rubicon, but Air is your only bona fide companion on this journey through capitalistic hell. So now 621 has established their rep on Rubicon and acquired a disembodied voice in their head. It's time to get down to business. Walter tells 621 to have a rest, but Air has other ideas. She tells us that Balaam has put in a request to start an advanced survey in the central ice field, but we need to get there first. And it turns out that no matter how powerful an AC is, crossing oceans isn't exactly their forte. Thankfully, Air knows that in Grid 086 there is an intercontinental cargo launcher, and she can get us through security. And keep that concept in mind. Intercontinental cargo launcher. It's as stupid and as awesome as it sounds. Chapter 2 is the shortest chapter in the game, featuring only 3 missions. It's in this chapter where we get above ground and we get to explore some of the vast grid network that until this point has been the skybox around us. The grid is a vast tangle of industrial plants, furnaces and cargo trains that stretches around the entire planet. Where Chapter 1 has the player navigating the contaminated city and its surrounding areas, Grid 086 is a rabbit warren of tight corridors, sudden turns and claustrophobic combat encounters. Close combat focus builds are the order of the day here, as you're going to spend most of your time in Chapter 2 up close and personal. We're also going to be introduced to a pair of new factions in this chapter. The Dozers are a collection of humans who use the coral to get high. I told you, it's a substance that can do anything. They make use of the grid to live, hide and scavenge, often pulling random parts from destroyed ACs and MTs to kludge together into something that resembles a functional piece of military hardware. Reuse and development, or RAD, and their leader Syndicala are more important to the actual story. Carla created RAD as a splinter of one of the Dozer groups and helped them see that yes, getting high is fun, but becoming black market arms merchants is much more profitable. Carla and her deputy, Chatty Stick, Lead the group to pull apart and customize civilian mechs and MTs to make new weapons of war, which they'll sell to anyone who has the credits, be it the Dozers or even the Rubicon Liberation Front. Initially seeing 621 as a threat, Carla gives them the quasi-affectionate nickname of Tourist.
Looks like you're having fun, tourist. You know, RAD loves a good welcome party. Come on in, and let's get acquainted.
How courteous.
She then sets about trying to defend her territory by throwing everything she has against us, which doesn't go well for her stocks of defences. Once we destroy the Smart Cleaner boss, she yields and offers to help us. Well, only once we help her out. We destroyed all of her defences and the other factions have noticed, so it's only fair that we help her out. I think. I'm not sure how the logic works, but at this point 621 needs her far more than she needs 621. As a side note, the Smart Cleaner is a really fun boss fight. FromSoftware have always been good at creating big dumb fights just as they are good at creating spectacle fights, and the Smart Cleaner doesn't disappoint. It plays somewhat similarly to the Juggernaut fight from Chapter 1, but it's far more aggressive and can spit fire at you. It also happens to have 2 weak points, one on its front and one at the top. It's not a hard boss by any stretch of the imagination. It can be utterly cheesed by equipping a set of tetrapod legs and hovering above it for the length of the fight, but it also gives you an insight to the mad genius of Carla. This machine used to be a cleaning and disposal machine, and Carla has turned it into a fighting machine that's capable of smashing you into tiny pieces and then cleaning up the mess right after. It's brilliant. Once we've agreed to help Carla, we get our next divergent mission depending on your new game cycle. On your first run, you'll simply have to smash up a collection of MTs belonging to a rival Dozer clan, the Junker Coyotes. It's not difficult, but on New Game Plus we get an alternative mission: Stop the Secret Data Breach. This mission starts with Carla telling you the Coyotes are trying to steal her secret cache of data, and we need to rush and destroy several hacking drones. We backtrack through the map, destroy the drones, fuck up the Coyotes, including a mini-boss. All in a day's work, right? Well, no. We get word there are reinforcements coming. We head outside to meet up with an unlikely antagonist. In New Game Plus, during the Attack the Dam Complex mission, halfway through you're contacted by the Rubicon Liberation Front, and they offer you double pay if you turn on G4 Volta and G5 Iguazu. As the capitalist monster we are, we agree and we betray the Red Guns. G1 Michigan is annoyed at us, but respects our decision, even keeping our designation of G13 in place. Volta doesn't give a shit, but Iguazu. Oh man, Iguazu is pissed at us. Iguazu comes off as the saltiest man on Rubicon, and he may well be a being of pure sodium chloride for all we know. The lore we learn about him through the arena tells us he's a compulsive gambler who underwent the same augmentations that 621 did, and joined the Red Guns to pay off his debts. But because he's an arrogant tool, he doesn't like to take orders. He gets into a fight with Michigan and ends up being beaten to a pulp and disfigured as a result. He has a chip on his shoulder the size of the actual Iguazu River. And yes, all of the Red Guns are named after rivers and lakes. Michigan, Volta, Nile, Wuhai, etc. It's a fun little detail. It's worth bearing in mind that getting augmentations and piloting ACs is not often a positive thing for a person. Reddit user Sanglead posted this perceptive point on the Armored Core subreddit when talking about Iguazu. Quote, as shown in one of the story trailers depicting Handler Walter's first interaction with 621, for the vast majority of people augmentation is akin to being sold into slavery. You aren't a person being installed with hardware, you are the person that needs to be installed into the hardware in order to be sold. Walter buys 621 in the trailer, he owns you. Until you make enough credits to pay back what he paid, you are his property. Iguazu, meanwhile, was purchased by Balaam Industries and has been working for them for 7 years, as noted in Gun4 Volta's arena profile. Note that this means that Iguazu isn't someone who has been augmented for a long time, and that's why he has old tech like Sulla or us, presumably. He was someone who was installed into aging tech, likely because that's what the person who he owed money to had on hand. End quote.
Huh. You're the freelancer from the dam raid. And here I thought I'd just make some extra scratch. Guess I can settle the score at the same time.
So if Iguazu is aligned with the Red Guns, what is he doing in the grid? Simply enough, he's taken a side gig with the Coyotes to try and make some more money to pay down his debt and leave his wage slavery. But he didn't expect to find us defending our AD, and he certainly didn't expect to be attacked by several ghosts in the middle of our fight. Remember them from Chapter 1? Yeah, the stealthy lads make an appearance several times throughout the New Game Plus cycles. 3 of them interrupt our rematch with Iguazu and force us to become temporary allies again, until they're defeated and Iguazu shows us thanks by continuing to try and kill us. Lovely bloke.
Now we can finally be alone. Your next freelancer.
Up to this point in the game, we don't have any clue who the ghosts belong to, and we won't find out until well into New Game++. So hold on to that, but they are important.
Ringing in my ears again.
As we finish this fight, Iguazu complains of headaches and a piercing sound in his head. Iguazu, much like 61, is a Gen 4 augment. The coral augmentation he endured will have been very similar to 61's, so whichever way air is broadcasting to 61's head is also affecting Iguazu too. This is where Iguazu takes particular exception to 621 and things become personal, as he believes that 621 has found a way to cheat in a fight, or some kind of new weapon that attacks the pilot rather than the AC itself. What started as petty rivalry now becomes a personal vendetta for Iguazu. Once we've handled the coyote attack and sent Iguazu back to the poorhouse, Carla holds up her part of the deal and shows us how to get to the cargo launcher. We have to get to the topmost level of the grid and cross in the open. Now up to this point, we've actually not been in the open air before. There's always been the grid above us. So when we step out to the top level, we are visible to the PCA's orbital security lasers. Remember that laser that knocked us off course on the way down to the planet in the opening cutscene? Yeah, those. The PCA take their job really seriously. Flying fast is the key to survival here, but once we're past the lasers, we meet our next major boss. The Sea Spider. If you're on your first playthrough, meet your next roadblock. The Sea Spider is an autonomous sea weapon, powered by Coral and expertly capable of fucking your day up. When it drops in, Carla lets us know that it's a leftover invention of the Rubicon Institute, the faction who were in charge of Rubicon before the fires of Ibis. Their mad scientists created several of these sea weapons to protect the planet and the coral. They're powerful, persistent, and some of the hardest bosses in the game. The Sea Spider is a hexapod with a vast health pool, ridiculous mobility for its size, and so many weapons that it'll make your graphics card melt with all the particle effects. It will frequently spam missiles and laser barrages at you simultaneously. It has a leap and stomp both, which have a wide area of effect attack on landing, as well as a whacking great big laser beam that can utterly devastate your ACS meter and your HP. And then in the second phase it starts flying, whilst continuing to spam all of the aforementioned attacks as often as it can. Yeah, the key to this fight is to keep the pressure on while staying mobile. Most of its attacks can be dodged, but when it starts to stack them up, you've got to be so careful of your EN meter. Most of my deaths to this walking war crime came from thinking I'd dodged an attack only to be caught by one of the area of effects, or a missile barrage I'd not been focusing on while I waited for my EN meter to refill. But like all terrible things, it can be defeated, and when you fight it again in New Game Plus, it's significantly less intimidating. Part of the challenge of the sea weapon bosses, because trust me this isn't the only one, is that they catch you off guard. They all fight very differently from any of the ACs that you'll fight across the game, and they force you to really engage with your build and the movement mechanics. They also happen to be spectacular fights, both visually and mechanically, just be prepared to die. A lot. Once you've turned it into a pile of smoke and wreckage, you can get onto the intercontinental cargo launcher. I'm just going to let this cutscene play out here so you can appreciate how ludicrous this is.
By the way, tourist, you're Walter's hound, right? Well, guess a dog can't choose its master. But still, tough luck. I feel sorry for you, I really do. Oh, and one more thing. You know the cargo launcher's strictly for cargo, right? No one's ever used it to launch themselves before. At least not in one piece. Hope your luck changes.
Raven? You see it too, don't you? The voices of the coral. Currents coursing across Rubicon. Walter was correct in his judgment. The coral. It's here, in this desolate place.
How is that practical at all? Anything you get delivered by that is going to turn up in worse condition than a parcel delivered by Every. Now we're in the central ice field. It's time to step up our search for the coral. Arquebus and Balaam have somehow arrived here at the same time without having to use the International Parcel Destroyer, so we already have to start playing catch-up. We open with a mission from the Red Guns to steal coral survey data from Arquebus. They've gotten the jump on the coral survey, so Balaam wants to level the playing field, and in the process we can sneak a peek at the data. For this mission we've got a huge mine complex to play in and 4 data drones to hack. By the end of the mission, that's when things go off the rails. Once we've stolen the data, we get further instructions to stop the Arquebus forces from absconding with some extra data. We chase them to a cliffside and engage, only for giant lasers to hit the enemies, and if we're not positioned right, us too. The PCA have arrived. The Planetary Closure Administration is the official force in charge of keeping Rubicon 3 safe from plundering forces. So, us. And much like any militarised police force, they keep Rubicon safe by turning anyone who isn't supposed to be here into a smoking crater. The PCA sent some Enforcer ACs to try and kill us, but once we've turned them into recycling material, we have to face a goddamn space frigate! Look at it! It's ridiculous! It's got giant lasers, it's got a cloud of drones. What's an enterprising mercenary to do? Maybe run? Maybe die? Nope. Fly at it and blow the shit out of the command deck. Beautiful. No notes. Perfection.
Looks like the coast is clear. The closure area is SG's jurisdiction. Why send an enforcement squad in a warship? Special mission, maybe? Or was it? Wait. Over there.
Trespassers to Rubicon, this is your warning. Disarm and withdraw from the closure area immediately. Resistance will be regarded as a declaration of war, and you will be marked for termination. The PCA makes no exceptions.
The PCA. They're coming.
Looks like we got a little too eager, 621. Us and the corporations both.
Chapter 3 has us bouncing back and forth between the central ice field and the continent we started the game on. How do we get around so quickly? Doesn't matter. We've got mechs to smash and sabotage to conduct and more mechs to smash. I'm not going to cover everything in this chapter because it's the longest chapter in the game by far, and I don't want this video to go on forever, but there are some key important missions that are worth going through. We are told about Xylem, an uninhabited floating city that has gone silent. It was once a thriving metropolis for the Rubicon Institute, but external scans of the city from water and air prove impossible due to a deep fog causing interference. I love this mission. It's not a great deal of combat here, but there's this brilliant, creepy atmosphere as you pick through the skyscrapers following glowing red beacons dropped by a research drone. You get some deep lore in the form of writings from Thumdol Mayan, the quasi-messianic leader of the RLF. And once you deal with the fog generators, the PCA rock up and they bring an old friend for a second round. A damned helicopter. If you struggled with this fight at the end of the first mission, this is your chance for some revenge. By now you'll be tooled up and ready to hand down unabashed bullying to this overloaded sky shed, and it's truly cathartic. A little later in the chapter we get another mission choice. Either take on some PCA ACs or take on the Cataphract. Now I'm bringing this up because the Cataphract might be the silliest thing in this entire game and I love it. So do you remember how I described Bolteus, a remote-control weapons platform strapped around an MT? Yeah, that's what the Cataphract is, but turned up to 11. This hyperactive war crime is an enormous tank with an MT in the centre of it and nearly every weapon you can think of. According to the official guide, the Cataphract has vertical missile salvos, head-on missile salvos, double Gatling guns, laser shotgun, spiral laser, and mortar turrets. It will also charge you. And it's fast, holy shit is it fast. I cannot tell you how hard I laughed when this atrocity drifted onto the battlefield like something out of a Fast and Furious movie. All of this adds up to a decently challenging boss battle, as there's only one small weak point in the Cataphract. Fragile little MT in the middle of it. The sides are heavily armoured, and the only way to damage it is to face it head on. Honestly, I love this fight. It's big, dumb, and fast. As the PCA keeps making life difficult for the corporations, we get a call from Arquebus to attack an old spaceport that the feds are used for maintenance and refueling.
This is V2 Snail. I shall brief you on the operation. You will be under my direct authority. Consider it a rare privilege. We will conduct simultaneous surprise raids on 2 Planetary Closure Administration bases. One is the Hall of Communications base, the relay for comms between enemy squads. The second is the former Bertram spaceport, seized by the PCA for its suppression fleet. V4 Rusty will be dispatched to handle the Harlov base. His objective will be to disable their network and prevent support from PC elite squads. Raven, during this time you must destroy all the heavy warships berthed at the spaceport. Solid plan, but there's a catch. Disruption of PCA comms won't last long. I'll come support you when I've finished on my end.
Simple. Quick mission. In and out. No problem. Right? So we're paired with Rusty again. He's off another location for most of the mission, disrupting the PCA comms to prevent reinforcements appearing immediately, and it's time to get to work. We have 5 ships to blow up. They're guarded by a collection of MTs, which at this point in the game shouldn't cause any problems for us. It's just boom after boom after boom after boom after boom. So far, so much dopamine. Then the reinforcements arrive. Snipers. 2 more ships to blow up. Again, 2 more booms, 2 more dopamine. Naturally, the PCA are unhappy about us, and they've sent 2 of their elite officers to destroy us.
Code 1-5. Target for termination sighted. Time to pay the piper.
Looks like we've got high-ranking PCA officers. Sorry to keep you waiting. I've got your back, buddy. Hope you've got mine.
Code 4. Send me what you've got on the target.
Relaying system response. Corporate agency V4 Rusty. Independent mercenary rated. Data on the mercenary is being checked for discrepancy.
Rusty arrives and we get one of my favourite AC boss fights. The music, the vibe, fighting around the wreckage of a battleship. Oh, God, it's good. So good.
Code 788 received. System processing.
AP at 50%. Right.
Nice work, buddy. Glad you're on my side.
Code 31A. Systems green. We checked. Code 78E.
But once the dust has settled, we get a new thing to worry about. The ground rumbles and we're told something big is coming.
Threat to planetary closure identified. Use of IA-02 authorized.
I'm picking up something. I've sent you a marker. There's something there.
And when it arrives, it's very big. The ice worm.
Underground.
What is that thing? Is that another PCA weapon?
This coral response. There's no pilot. It's an autonomous sea weapon.
I can't get a read on it. This is bad. Just focus on staying alive, 621. Wait, something's wrong.
It's changing its behavioral pattern, answering to a greater imperative. To protect the convergence.
Looks like the PCA has helped itself to the Institute's relics. 621, rest up at base. I'll come up with a plan to deal with our new friend.
The ice worm is the next sea weapon we have to deal with. The PCA have unleashed it without really understanding what it is. It's ostensibly a several-mile-long tunneling machine designed to dig deep under the ground. But now it's imbued with the coral, and the coral is using it to defend the coral convergence that we are looking for. And the ice worm is big. It's really big. It's powerful and near enough invulnerable to almost every normal AC weapon, so we need to do a bit of homework. The threat of the ice worm and the harassment of the PCA causes the corporations to forge an uneasy alliance. We all need to work together to take this threat down, and by work together, of course that means 621 does all the heavy lifting. But the plan comes together quickly. We need to get a giant railgun back from the dozers. Carl needs to put together a new weapon for us, and in between things we get to fight the person whose name we stole and steal some data for air, all in a day's work. But when we're ready, we head back in for what I'm comfortable saying is my favourite FromSoftware gimmick boss. Better than Radahn, better than Ancient Dragon, orders of magnitude better than the Bed of Chaos.
Listen up, 621. This will be a joint operation led by Balaam and Arquebus. The briefing's about to start. I want you to attend.
First, some background before we go into detail. The intercorporate ceasefire is now in effect, and we will be carrying out coordinated attacks against the PCA. The targets are the enemy-occupied bases, the heavy warship fleet, and the recently activated...
I'll cut to the chase. This is an all-out war against the PCA and theaters across Rubicon. And y'all got the short end of the stick. You're here to take on the worst of our dirty work, hunting the beast of the ice field.
Sure thing, Chief. Tell you what, I'll watch and let you know how badly that goes for us.
Gun 5, you just volunteered yourself for the front line.
Moving on. Let's talk about how we're going to neutralize the ice worm's coral shield. You'll be dealing with a layered barrier made up of a primary and a secondary shield.
Arquebus will provide the means to break the first layer. State-of-the-art stun needle launcher. Aim for the face, and it will deliver results, I assure you.
What about the second layer?
RAD's cooked up just the thing. A neat little toy we call the overhead rail cannon. The If we divert the spaceport standby power to the ORC, should hit hard enough, assuming we land the shot.
You can leave that to me. I know a thing or two about sharpshooting.
I'll oversee operations on the ground. A ragtag crew like this needs leadership.
We could use some more suppressive fire. I'll send Chatty.
That just leaves the question of who will be taking charge of the stun needle launcher.
I know just the volunteer to go poke that beast with a stick. Gun 13, you get all that? Good! Time for another field trip!
The Iceworm is defended by a 2-tier shield. This is why we can't damage it directly. We need to break the shield first. Carla has put together the stun needle for us, an energy weapon capable of disrupting the first tier of the shield. But of course there's a wrinkle. We only break the shield if we hit it in the face, so timing and positioning is key.
Operation with combined AC force as per the Balaam Archibus agreement. Move out, maggots! Time to die!
Act like a professional outfit and you might live.
What does that creep think he is? I ain't here because I wanna be.
We gotta deal with those pesky shields first. Gun 13, roll out that fancy gizmo that Archibus paid the big bucks for.
You need to aim for the head. The rest of its body is covered in thick armor.
This is V4 Rusty. Rail cannon is good to go. Don't die before I get a chance to fire, buddy.
But once you hit it and you break the shield, it's Rusty's turn. He's several miles away with the rail cannon, and I'm telling you this is the best build-up to anything in the game. Now shut up and just show you the build-up to the shot.
Output at 80%. Sighting correction A-OK. 90, 95. I won't miss.
Damn it, Rusty, why are you so cool?
Shield down.
Gun 13, the head's open for a direct hit.
Once the shield is down, you have a short window to do as much damage as possible. Rinse and repeat. Rusty only has 4 shots of the railgun, so it's actually entirely possible to fail this mission if you don't have a high enough DPS output when it's stunned. Throughout the mission, you've got radio chatter between Michigan, Chatty, Snail, Rusty and Iguazu, with each peeling off from the fight as they take damage. And by the end of the fight, it's just you and the worm. Rusty has overloaded the railgun, it's down to you alone to finish it off. Genuinely love the Iceworm fight. In the grand scheme of things, it's not exactly difficult, but it's so much fun and it pushes the spectacle of the game to new levels. New levels that will be surpassed as we head into Chapter 4.
All or nothing.
Target's coral shield has been wiped out.
You now, buddy. Is it over?
Get it clear, it's gonna blow!
You shitting me? The freelancer really did it.
It's finally over. The blast will contaminate the area. Get out of...
Coral voices. Lost again. Raven. There's something I have to tell you. The coral. It's my family. My brothers and sisters. I am but a single wave, born from the coral tide. A Rubiconian without a body. No one even knew I was there for such a long time. Raven, you're the only one who...
Go get your rest, 621. Things are going to get busy. You did good.
So the Iceworm is dead and the PCA have fucked off. The Arquebus have taken advantage and stolen a load of PCA hardware. The Red Guns are chasing their tails and the RLF have pretty much thrown in the towel. What's a merc to do? Yeah, you got it right, ignore the lot of them and instead head underground to find the coral. Chapter 4 takes place entirely underground, but to get there we need to endure my least favourite mission of the game, Depth 1. This mission has you descending through another watchpoint tower, which sounds simple enough, except at the bottom of it there's a PCA artillery platform ready to obliterate anything that moves. This is a slow, annoying mission of dropping between cover to avoid laser fire from the Nepenthes platform at the bottom of the tower. Despite their size and weight, ACs don't seem to fall very quickly, so this mission just takes forever. And the worst part, when you get to the bottom, the Nepenthes platform has no armour underneath, so it's a cakewalk to actually destroy. It's not even a fun boss to fight. It's such a frustrating mission. Thankfully, once we're past Nepenthes, the chapter gets a bit more interesting. Heading to the second depth has you working through an abandoned logistics facility filled with automated defences, and much like the grid in Chapter 2, combat here is close range and claustrophobic. It's really easy to find yourself overwhelmed and taking lots of damage in some of the encounters, which is going to make this mission difficult as we have 2 bosses to deal with. If you're on your first playthrough, halfway through this mission we'll meet an old friend, Gunfire Iguazu. Yes, Sir Salt himself is back to fuck up our day, or rather to have his day fucked up. He ambushes 621 in a tight arena, which benefits him as much as possible. Iguazu's AC is fast and agile, ducking around the obstacles in the room and forcing you to fight with the game's camera to keep track of him. But that being said, if you can block him to a corner, you can explode him into submission, which is always fun. If you're in New Game Plus, you'll have already fought Iguazu in Stop the Secret Data Breach, so instead you'll fight a merc here called Cold Call, who Iguazu hired to take you out. That's how pissed he is at you. He'd rather spend money having you killed rather than getting a new AC or paying his debts down. And once we're done bullying Iguazu, or Cold Call, we have to deal with the Enforcer, an automated security robot the PCA put in place to protect Watchpoint Alpha from intruders like us. Oh dear. Now, this thing does not fuck around. It spots lasers, swords, missiles, shields, and halfway through the fight it moves into Termination mode, in an attempt to smash 621 to as many tiny little pieces as possible. For me, I struggled with this one a lot on my first playthrough. The Enforcer has a pretty high HP pool. It has pulse shields that eat up damage until you can pop them, and despite its size it can run rings around you. This is one of the fights in the game where the build is half the battle. Being fast and nimble helps, but you also need to be able to take some damage, lest you be one-shot. But don't make the mistake of having a heavy tanky build either, as the Enforcer's second phase DPS is ridiculous, so you need to be able to dodge and move fast. So, good luck with that. I recommend shotguns and staying right up in his business, but your mileage may vary. Once the Enforcer is down, we have one more security system to take care of before we can get to the coral. A laser grid stopping anything from getting below the facility. As I said before, the PCA take their job very seriously. I love the visuals of this mission. Seeing this structure hanging over the pit with the red latticework below, it's so striking. And naturally we deal with this the only way we know how. Smash, bang, boom, fly, big boom. In that order. And before we head to the deep, deep down and reach the coral convergence, we need to deal with the corporations to give us some space to work. We get a choice here. Either ambush 2 of the higher ranking Vespers on behalf of the Rubicon Liberation Front, or intercept the Red Guns and take them off the board at the behest of V3 Pater. Now I love the intercept the Red Guns battle. Your job here is simply to destroy Michigan and cut off the Red Guns' leadership. What you end up having to do is survive several waves of MTs, drones and ACs until Michigan's AC is ready for the fight, and then you have to fight him. It's a pure endurance battle, and all the way through you have Michigan arguing with his subordinates.
Attack! Get in there, you maggots!
Looks like Archibald sent some clown on a suicide mission. Real cute.
only clown around here is you, Kennebec. You're talking about the wall climber, the worm killer, the only gun 13 has managed to live this long. Until the Liger Tail deploys, the odds are not in your favor.
I heard that Merc took down Gun 5 at Guasu.
Wasu? Oh yeah, the deserter who pissed his pants and ran.
Albany, I forgot we still kept you around. Guasu's worth 100 of you, which means, Albany, the Merc is worth 20 of you. You're doing nothing productive. Why don't you do the math for us?
The answer is 2,000 Albany, sir!
Shut your stinkhole and start shooting! Liger Tail's gonna be good to go soon. Keep the target busy.
Now, come on, sir. You gonna ride out and steal all the credit? You got plenty of medals already, sir. You want some of the glory, too.
Fine. Whoever takes down Gun 13 gets to take home a bale of cobalt metal. They're good, you know. They go real far when you throw them. Listen up, maggots. This field trip is now a hunting expedition. You can go home now, or follow me if you got a death wish.
Ready to die, sir!
Those of you who went through, keep your lousy asses low. You're gonna need more training. Put that in your diaries.
Sir, I'm a useless maggot, sir!
If it isn't Osawa, a resident mathematician. Go multiply your rifle training and see if you can learn to do something useful.
We had so much background lore and context too. We found out the Red Guns don't know what happened to Iguazu, thinking he turned tail and ran. Some of the Red Guns try to diminish 621, calling us a clown, only for Michigan to castigate them and defend us. Like he says, we're the wall climber, the worm killer, and the longest surviving Gun 13. We've done so well, gold stars all round. Then Michigan arrives in the Liger Tail AC. We have to deal with him and nearly 50 other enemies at once. It becomes an intense battle of attrition as we try to survive and dodge all of his missile attacks while focused on thinning out the herd of enemies to make things safer. All the while, Michigan is bantering back and forth with the Red Gun MT pilots. I love this fight so much. Also, weirdly enough, this fight is so good for double flamethrowers. Seriously, give it a try. With Balaam and the Red Guns well and truly defeated, we can resume our journey and head deeper and deeper, beyond even where the PCA dared to go. Down here we find our first and only Rubiconian life forms, beyond the coral itself, in the form of mealworms. They're attracted to your AC, then they're full of coral, and they'll explode if you get too close to them. And hopefully the tunnels are absolutely stacked with them. Keep your wits about you, they're going to come from every direction, including above you. They don't do a great deal of damage, but up ahead you'll need to be on top form for the boss.
Go deal with a mercenary who went in alone, they said. Figures. Seems both of us are too dangerous to keep around. And the higher-ups wouldn't miss an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Hate to say it, but Rubicon still needs me. So, buddy, who needs you?
Our old buddy has a bit more to him than meets the eye. He's been dispatched by the Vespers to take out 621 as we've both been deemed too dangerous to Arquebus's plans, so why not have us kill each other in the process? Rusty says that Rubicon still needs him, and we fight. And oh boy do we fight. Rusty's probably the fastest AC boss we've encountered to this point. He has a laser flail attack that can stun lock instantly if you get caught by it. The music and the setting within some ruined hardware, oh, it's just a stunning fight. And if you're on New Game Plus, we get some extra Rusty lore, in that his uncle, Middle Flatwell, turns up to help him. Middle Flatwell is the de facto commander of the Rubicon Liberation Front, which absolutely confirms Rusty's true allegiance. He asks us if we know what we're fighting for, which is a fair point. As to this point, 61 has just been following Walter Eyre or Carla's orders. 61 has no agency in their existence on Rubicon 3, just orders to follow, bullets to fire, and things to destroy. This isn't the last time we see Rusty in the game. We damage his AC and he escapes, leaving us free to finish our descent and discover the ruins of Institute City.
We've lost all signs of Steel Haze. He's escaped. I'm picking up a major coral response, coming from the bottom of the pit. Let's keep moving, Raven.
Institute City. Of course. No wonder we couldn't find it. I need to prepare before the corps move in. Head back to base and rest up.
This vast city was once the home of the Rubicon Institute, the preeminent organisation responsible for all of the research and discoveries around the coral. It's here that we learn most about the fires of Ibis. The head of the institute, Professor Nagai, discovered that the coral had reached a critical mass and risked something referred to as the coral collapse, where the coral would escape Rubicon and spread throughout the galaxy. He averted this disaster by triggering another one, activating a weapon that we'll meet very soon, and triggering the fires of Ibis, burning the coral and the planet and everyone in the institute. This also caused the city to collapse into a massive sinkhole, which was then covered by the central ice field once the fires of Ibis receded. At the centre of the city lies the vascular plant, and that's our target. We have to deal with V6 Metalink and Gun 3 Wuhai, who are all sort of on the same team now, but have also been betrayed by Snail and left for dead. And as we head towards the plant, we encounter a throwback to one of the worst enemies in Dark Souls, the Bone Wheel Skeletons. Yes, thank you FromSoftware for giving us the Helianthus, a rotating saw blade that fires missiles and can absolutely ruin your week. Totally a thing you guys had to put in the game. Thanks, guys. Dicks. Anyway, we get to the vascular plant and we meet what I would consider to be the most spectacular and fun boss in the whole game.
The coral's rising. It's building up faster than I'd expected.
Raven, I knew Walter was...
Wait, something's coming.
Unidentified machine overhead. A response. It's a sea weapon.
The Ibis series, still functional. Get ready, 621.
Oh baby. For me, this final skill check of a fight before the last chapter of the game is Armored Core 6 at its finest. CEL-240 Ibis is a boss that challenges the player to fully understand their build and fully engage with the mechanics of the game. It's an aggressive yet elegant boss which absolutely melts the screen with barrages of coral-based laser fire. While it's weak to stun needles and burst damage, it moves so quickly that just keeping up with it is half the challenge. You will die again and again and again and again and again. Much like the bosses in Sekiro, Ibis requires you to pay attention and learn every potential opening. Cheese builds such as dual shotguns and dual songbirds don't work very well unless you can consistently hold it at mid-range and time out the shots and reloads perfectly. Chain guns aren't greatly effective because the boss will hold itself at a range where the bullets will just ricochet away. Plasma and energy weapons are great, but the time taken to charge them and land a hit is always awkward. For me, the build that worked best involved the laser lance, using that to burn through the boss's ACS meat and then just unloading everything else I had into it. The battle takes place over the water with the vascular plant sitting high above us. It's a spectacular yet simple arena that gives both the player and the boss space to move around. And when you've knocked Ibis down to 0 HP, you sit and you breathe for a moment until the coral rallies and the damn thing gets back up. This is just the Guardian Ape all over again.
Enemy coral response. Silent.
Wait, it's coming back.
It's reactivating.
Is this what the Ibis series is truly capable of?
It's listening. Drawing power from its environment. It won't stop until we destroy its generators.
And in the second phase of the fight, Ibis has learned a new trick. An enormous laser wave attack that can come out of absolutely nowhere and hit you multiple times in a row. I'm not kidding when I say the first time I defeated Ibis, I was drenched in sweat. Even on New Game Plus, Ibis continued to be a roadblock for me. I spent more time in the game fighting this boss than I have playing through most of the game in New Game Plus Plus. And yet despite that, I adore this fight and I genuinely think it's my favourite boss in the whole game. With Ibis down, there's nothing to stop us from reaching the coral. Oh wait, except V2 Snail and his stun needle. Et2 Snail, Et2.
Is it over, 621?
The coral resonance. It's fading. The machine's resolve, inherited from its creators. Voices from the past, fading into...
No! 621, move!
Raven, you're losing control!
Damn it! They were the ones... Target neutralized. Yes. I left the subject alive as instructed. Only a fool would try to outfox Arquebus. I'll see that the unruly dog is punished and brought to heel. Oh, and of course, let's not forget the Hound's master either.
Okay, we're into the last chapter of the game and we've been taken by Arquebus and sent for re-education. Air is still with us, but we've been separated from our AC and handler Walter. We do receive a message though, with one final order from Walter before he was taken too.
Raven? I found a message addressed to you. Decoding and playing back.
621. A friend of mine sent a request. Now, this one comes from me. You know what hidden dangers lurk within the coral. The fires of Ibis should have wiped the coral out, but it survived. Gathered. And it's been steadily multiplying ever since. Now the coral convergence is growing at an exponential rate. Eventually, it'll spill out from Rubicon and contaminate space itself. The coral must be burned, 621. Even if that means reigniting the fire that scorched the stars. This isn't an order. It's a legacy. My fallen friends entrusted this duty to me, and now it's my turn to hand it on. 621. Feed the fire. Let the last cinders burn. I have one last job for you. Find your freedom.
Raven. Now I finally understand what Walter was thinking. This AC. He must have foreseen this outcome and prepared for it. It's time for us to escape.
Chapter 5 is tricky to talk about as it leads to 3 different endings, and the way each ending plays out results in wildly different missions for 621 to complete. So I'm going to talk about it in more broad terms until we get to New Game Plus Plus and the true ending, where I'll go into detail a bit more. So once we've escaped from re-education and a junk AC, we're picked up by Carla, who reveals that she and Walter were close friends and colleagues in a faction called Overseer. Overseer were in place to make sure the coral never became a problem again, and if it did, burn it all to the ground once more. Make sure the job is done. This revelation horrifies Air and she begs 621 not to follow Overseer's plans. Decisions, Raven. In the time we've been in prison, Arquebus has rebuilt the vascular plant and is starting to collect the coral. The plant extends up into space and the Corp are ready to start exporting it around the galaxy again. No matter which path we choose, we need to get up there. Fortunately, Carla knows a secret way to get into space. Remember the Xylem? The Forgotten Floating City? Yeah, it's not actually a city. It's a damned colony ship. So after some casual tower defense, we're on our way up to space. And here's where we have to choose a path.
The water level's falling. No, the whole city's rising.
You can thank Walter for the tip. I give you the colony ship, Sandman. Walter's parting gift.
Do we fulfill Walter's mission and burn the coral by crashing the Xylem into the vascular plant and causing a big explosion? Do we let Air and her kind live by downing the Xylem and crashing it back to Rubicon, allowing the coral to live free? No matter which path we pick, there's heartbreak ahead of us. If we side with Air, we get to fight alongside Rusty again, but Carla and Chatty Stick need to be destroyed in the process. But you also get to thoroughly humiliate V2 Snail in the process, so it, swings and roundabouts. If we side with Overseer, we have another fight against Rusty to cry our way through. We also get to destroy 17 spaceships in one mission, which I can tell you is even more fun than it sounds. But then we have the ending bosses. If we're supporting Air, we have to fight Handler Walter. Arquebus didn't kill him, they broke his brain with coral and pretty much lobotomized him, put him into a coral-powered AC to stop us. This fight is utterly heartbreaking, as the Xylem begins to fall out of orbit, we have to fight our Handler.
The Xylem is falling from orbit. The coral's safe. Rubicon's safe.
Is that you? They... 621. I have to dispose of you.
Walter! But that AC. Picking up a coral response. Watch out!
Corporations. Orders. No. My friend's mission. Eliminate all obstacles.
Whatever they did, you're in danger. We have to defend ourselves.
Walter's dialogue is pained. He doesn't want to be doing what he's doing, but he can't stop it. He's fast and he wields a coral laser that can easily catch you out if you're not paying attention. But then just when you'd expect him to swap into a second phase, Walter stops. He gains some control back, and due to the effect of the coral on him, he can see Air. He can see that the coral is sentient, and he can see that we're fighting for something different than Overseer. He gives up, and the Xylem goes down. Air is thankful and the coral can spread and live however it chooses to.
The mission.
Walter! We have to go, Raven. Raven. One day, humanity and Coral will thrive together. You kept our potential safe. I know Walter feared a collapse. But I promise you, there's another way. Raven. We'll find it together. Raven. You took on my hopes, my selfish dream. Now, I want to see the future that you choose. Whatever waits ahead, I'll support you.
Air is thankful the coral can spread and live however it chooses to. This grants you the ending Liberator of Rubicon. On the flip side, if we side with Carla and Overseer, our final boss is Air herself. And it's understandable. She doesn't want to be killed and she wants the coral to survive. She takes over an AC and we have to fight it to keep the Xylem safe on its collision course with the vascular plant.
Buddy, huh? Do him a favor, tourist. Remember him. Satellite cannons? This isn't right. There's no way the corpse took the closure system. Who's controlling them? This ship's pretty roughed up. Autopilot's out. We'll have to do it the old-fashioned way. I'll leave the satellites to you, tourist. You know, for a tourist, you've got a sense of humor. Good luck out there.
Raven. I know you can still see it. The voices of the coral. And yet you turned your back on our shared potential. You want to silence us forever.
If the fight with Walter can be considered almost easy, Air is the polar opposite. She fights much like the Ibis sea weapon we fought at the end of Chapter 4. She is fast, really fast. Her weapons are powered by coral, which means we have very little resistance to most of her attacks. And for her first 2 phases, she has a coral shield you need to break through before you can do any damage to her, and it recharges! So once you break it, you need to do as much damage as possible as fast as you can. At certain points, she generates coral copies of herself that dive bomb you before she does the coral wave attack that we saw with Ibis. This time she picks you up and does massive damage as she lifts you far above the arena. And all the way through, she expresses her sorrow that we chose to fight, that we rejected the symbiosis of humanity and the coral. 61 is the only human that the coral was ever able to communicate with, the only human to realise that the coral was a sentient being, rather than a form of fuel to be exploited. 61 was the last chance for the coral to live without being exploited by humanity. Once she is defeated, we watch the Xylem crash into the vascular plant, igniting the coral and creating the fires of Raven, burning Rubicon 3 and the surrounding star systems all over again.
Left-hand ammunition at 50%.
There were no winners at the close of the Coral War. When the storm of fire finally faded, only the ashes of civilization remained. Ruined and haunted, the corporations made a joint announcement with the Planetary Closure Administration. Rubicon was to be abandoned, left a dead planet forever. Meanwhile, the monster who burned the stars vanished into the flames, never to be heard from again. Yet history would forever remember the fires of Raven.
And then we have the true ending. Throughout New Game++, the story shifts. AI becomes aware that Allmind is being a bit weird. The mercenary support AI becomes more of a character in this cycle, though indirectly for most of the run. It starts off innocuously enough, with Allmind inviting 621 to go to the arena and fight against some AC configurations she's put together. These aren't necessarily boss encounters you'd have through the campaign, but they're challenging variants on AC builds that we've fought before. We also encounter a new mercenary pilot and 2 variant missions in this run. We're paired with Kate Markson in a reversed version of the Boars facility mission, where instead of investigating the facility, we have to defend it from the PCA. And then in a mission where we have to destroy coral shipments to prevent one of the corporations taking coral off planet. Kate Markson is present for both of those missions, but doesn't she sound familiar?
Raven the Wall Climber, I presume.
Target destroyed. This concludes all rounds of analysis. We will assimilate the results into Mind Gamma.
Yes, of course she does. Kate is All-Mind is Kate, and yes, you guessed it, the ghost mechs that we kept running into belong to All-Mind. But to what end? Well, All-Mind is an AI who is focused on improving humanity, rather than simply facilitating mercenaries to do their jobs. All-Mind has ideas of grandeur. If you've played frictional games as Seminal Soma, All-Mind is functioning very much like the WoW. In that game, the WoW is an AI tasked with keeping the scientists of Pathos 2 alive at all costs, but it doesn't have the nuance to understand that being technically alive isn't the same as living. Hence the horrific body horrors you see around the station as you play the game. All-Mind is sitting in that space. She wants to help humanity evolve, and she sees that the coral is the way to do that, whether humanity wants to evolve or not. At the end of Chapter 4, when you're working your way through Institute City, All-Mind interrupts Walter's instructions to head to the vascular plant. She tells the V2 snail is nearby and plans to ambush us. She tells us where to go and find him.
That should buy us some time.
Switching to encoded channels. Augmented Human C4621, Raven. V2 Snail intends to dispose of you once your utility is spent. Proceed blindly, and you will find yourself a prisoner of the corporations. We will transmit his coordinates. Eliminate him. All-Mind will handle the rest. Let's go, Raven.
Great, we get another opportunity to beat the smugness out of him. But halfway through the fight, we get interrupted by none other than Gunfire Iguazu. Yes, folks, he's back and he's still furious. And he's determined to get revenge for the 2 pastings we've already given him at this point. And all of a sudden this fight becomes a 3-way clusterfuck. Everyone in this small silo is trying to kill everyone, and it's the mecha equivalent of a knife fight in a phone booth. It's chaos. Absolute bedlam. Once they're put down, we have to escape, moving through the depths 2 in reverse. All-Mind has taken over all of the PCA MTs, and well, everything's on fire. Literally. Through all the fighting, we get to finish off both Balaam and Archivus as we run into Gun 6 Red, who attacks us after realising we're a threat, and then V3 Pater, who intends to stop us from escaping. But once he's down, All-Mind guarantees our safety as she believes we're now fully aligned with her goals, and we're put to sleep.
Destroyed. Looks like we're clear.
Augmented Human C4621, Raven. Well done. All-Mind hereby guarantees your protection. Invoking All-Mind Administrator access, erasing all records of the subject in custody. Augmented Human C4621, Raven. Your safety is now guaranteed.
We have entered satellite orbit. Release the subject from stasis.
Understood, Master All-Mind. Activating cerebral coral control device. Augmented Human C4621 has awakened.
Raven, you've come too. No brainwave abnormalities. Thank goodness. Deepest apologies, Raven. It was for the best that you remained asleep until the situation had settled. Allow us to explain. You are in the vicinity of a closure satellite, in the Xylem's hold. As anticipated, the corporations have siphoned the coral into a single mass. All that remains is to seize the opportunity to set the coral free, so that it may carry humanity toward new horizons. The coral release is imminent. Raven. Air. You shall be the trigger for the change to come.
When we're woken up, we're on the Xylem. Walter and Carla have it on a collision course with the vascular plant in space, and we need to stop it. The mission itself isn't much to write home about. We've got to destroy 6 MacGuffins that will allow All-Might to take over the drive computer and stop the Xylem from hitting the plant. What is of note in this mission is that All-Might, quote, takes care of Walter and Carla off screen. Whilst we're busy with an annoying click the right button and turn off the machine puzzle section, Walter is attacked and cut off the comms.
Walter, there's something behind you.
It's an Institute machine. No.
And that's all we hear about it, they're just gone.
The control system security is down. Access the central device ring.
Chief, I couldn't. Never learn to laugh.
The Xylem control system is silent.
Augmented Human C4621, Raven. Your efforts have averted a collision with the vascular plant. Additional. Handler Walter and Cinder Carla have been dealt with.
But now, with all obstacles out the way, All-Might's true intentions are revealed.
Augmented Human C4621, Raven. We offer you our gratitude. All impediments to coral release have been eliminated, and the complications caused by Handler Walter's meddling are soon to be corrected. The final stage is at hand. Together, we shall achieve coral release.
You see, All-Might's desire to evolve and improve mankind are sort of misleading. Yes, she wants to release the coral convergence across the galaxy to force the same kind of contact that 621 and Air achieved, but All-Might also wants to inject herself into that process and essentially become an all-powerful, controlling god. The fusion of humanity and coral allows for the perfect biomechanical interface. Think of the AC pilots being able to interface with their ACs like an extension of their own body, rather than controlling them like a giant vehicle. Now imagine if an all-knowing, malevolent AI was part of that interface layer. That's probably something we should stop. During the time that we've been in suspension, All-Might has a candidate become the first to merge with her. We land on one of the PCA satellites to be met with... Oh no. Oh, not again. Gun 5 Iguazu.
Look. The coral siphoned by the corporations is beginning to resonate. Augmented Human C4621. Raven, your role has come to an end.
Well, well. I've been waiting for this, freelancer. I became part of this monster so I could crush you. This time, you will die.
Main system activating combat mode.
Yes, we've killed him twice, now he's part of the All-Might AI and he's fucking furious. He wants revenge. In fact, he's only joined his consciousness with All-Might to specifically have the opportunity to get payback on 621. He even chastises All-Might and tells her he doesn't care about the grand plan. So here we have it, the final battle, and fuck me running, it's a doozy. This 3-phase fight starts with Iguazu and some MTs attempting to gank us. So far, not anything we can't handle. It's tricky, but ultimately not hard to dispatch the MTs and take down Iguazu. The AC he's using isn't particularly powerful, and it's pretty weak to energy attacks. But All-Might has her entire battle network in hand, and once the first AC is down, well, she gives him an upgrade.
You are aberrations to the plan.
Irregulars. We will bring order to chaos.
fight by your side.
Not only does Iguazu get a bigger, nastier AC, but All Mine provides two sea spiders to assist. Thankfully, Air has acquired her own AC, the one we fight her in for the Fires of Raven ending, and she joins the fight. What then goes down is what can only be accurately described as an orgy of violence. An ungodly mess of lasers, swords, particle effects and coral explosions. I have to say, this phase was the one I struggled the most with in this fight. It's impossible to see what's going on and keep track of where the boss is. The new AC Iguazu is given is fast and frequently flies up in the air, so not only are you dodging the fire of the two second phase sea spiders, you're keeping track of a boss who can be anywhere in three-dimensional space. Thankfully, you'll need to get the boss down to half health for the third phase to kick in. Reaching this causes an explosion that destroys the two sea spiders and disables Air's AC, giving you a 1v1 duel to finish Iguazu and All Mind off. And this is where Iguazu is getting desperate. His hatred and disgust for 621 comes out in dialogue that consists of pure bile. He admits to being jealous of 621, that we were the Gen 4 augment that was more capable than him, that didn't find anything a challenge. After all, why should success come to us so easily? It's just not fair, is it? It's a lethal ballet of a battle. By this point you'll likely have used most of your repair kits and probably all of your expansion slot abilities. You will die, and die again. When recording the footage for this video, my penultimate attempt ended up with me dying right as All Mind had 1 HP left. Look at it! Furious! Yet persistence pays off, and when All Mind goes down, Air unleashes the coral and allows it to spread across the galaxy.
I always envied you. The freelancer who had it all.
Our plan. Humanity. Creation's potential.
We have the trigger. And we'll pull it ourselves. Thank you, Raven. Raven, you're finally awake. The coral has carried us, disseminated us across the stars. Now, we're everywhere. Anywhere. Raven, let's meet this new age together. Main system. Activating combat mode.
The Coral Convergence merges humans and Coral together, but without the influence of a rogue AI. We wake up underwater on Rubicon and stand up. Hundreds of wrecked ACs around us also stand, their lights all glowing red. Everyone has made contact. Humanity and Coral has merged and become something different. Something better? It's unclear, but either way, we allowed the Coral to live and combine with humanity, and now we need to live with that decision. But as the ending name Alea Iacta Est goes, the die has been cast. The future for humanity, for Coral, for corporations, for Air, and for 621 is unwritten. It's up to us to see where it leads. No matter which ending you go for, be it Fires of Raven, Liberator of Rubicon, or Alea Iacta Est, they're all sort of bad endings. Liberator of Rubicon is considered by the community to be the quote-unquote good ending, but they still involve betraying someone and the deaths of characters you've been close with throughout your time on Rubicon 3. This is a FromSoftware game after all. They don't do good endings without a body count. And of course, as you've just heard, the true ending involves forcing an alien life form to merge with all humans everywhere. It could result in a better life for everyone concerned, but no one got a choice in it. We made that choice for an entire species. Probably not something that an augmented human with a broken brain really should be doing. Armored Core 6 is a stunning game. It should go down in gaming history as one of the greatest action games ever made. Had it released in any year save for 2023, the game would have absolutely been in conversation for Game of the Year across the board. Yet despite my gushing when I first played the game, I didn't like it. Yeah, I couldn't connect with it at all. I originally picked up the game on PS5, and I don't know why, but I simply wasn't enjoying it. I played through Chapter 1, beating Balteus, before sending the game disc off to one of my friends. I was gutted. I'm a huge fan of FromSoftware's canon, and I couldn't articulate what was wrong with the game for me. It ran well on the PS5. It looked great. The controls were tight and precise. It just didn't sit with me. A few weeks later, I picked it up on Steam in a fit of annoyance. I'd seen so much about the game on YouTube, and I refused to believe that this game wasn't for me. I don't know what changed. It might have been playing at a higher frame rate on PC, or the fact that I use an ultra-wide monitor so I had an extra field of view, but it clicked for me on PC. I blasted through the game in a week. I finished the arena, I engaged with the multiplayer, I devoured the game. I still can't work out why I didn't like it on console, but I'm so glad I gave it a second chance on PC. If I hadn't tried it again, I'd have missed out on one of my favourite gaming experiences of the last decade, if not my entire career as a gamer. Armored Core 6 spoke to me in a way that action games rarely do. In fact, it spoke to me in a way that most FromSoftware games fail to. The core themes of capitalistic rot, ecological indifference, and the loss of one's place in the world, and what it means to be alive, all tickle that dopamine center in my brain that keeps me watching and reading sci-fi dystopias. The performances by the voice actors sell this brutal world where death and destruction is just something to be paid for, where lives don't matter as long as the line on the profits chart keeps going up. 621 isn't a hero. 621's barely an anti-hero. 621 is a silent merc, working at the behest of others who would push them around for whatever agenda suits them at the time. Walter and Carla want to save humanity from the Coral, but doing so eradicates a sentient species. Air wants to create a symbiosis between humans and the Coral, but humanity doesn't get a choice in it at all. Allmind turns out to be a traditionally psychotic AI who can't tell the difference between helping the human race and destroying it. And Iguazu is a dick that deserves to be put down every time he appears. And yet, despite it all, it's easy to forget that and instead root for 621 and Air as a partnership. Air is the only character in the game that's consistently nice to 621, granting them an actual name by referring to us as Raven. The other factions refer to 621 as some kind of dog or a hound. Carla calls us a tourist, and Walter just refers to us by our number. Everyone's either trying to kill or use 621 for their own nefarious ends, except Air. She wants us to help her and her family, to release the Coral and allow it to exist as a species. Genuinely found it upsetting to turn away from Air when I went for the Fires of Raven ending. The voice performance conveyed every atom of spite and hurt that Air felt when I made the choice to betray her. It's heartbreaking, even more so to have her square off against Raven in one of the hardest fights in the game. The only negative thought I have towards Armored Core 6 is that once you've finished all 3 endings and S-ranked the missions, that's it. The replay value has burned itself out. And now I'm aware it's no mean feat to complete each mission perfectly, but once you have that achievement, there's very little to go back to the game for. I just want more AC6. Some campaign DLC, some more weapons and parts in the garage, co-op missions, anything. I just so desperately want an excuse to return to Rubicon 3 and have something new to do. If you haven't tried Armored Core 6, then for my money you're missing out on one of the most mechanically satisfying, narratively interesting and best presented action games ever to be made. If you love games like Ace Combat, Devil May Cry or Nier Automata, you'll love AC6. Recently, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the CEO of FromSoftware, was quoted as saying he's not finished with the Armored Core series, and there were aspects of Armored Core 6 that could be improved on, and he would like to continue the series. I really hope they do. I really hope that FromSoftware put as much love, care and budget into the next game and tried to give this long dormant franchise a second chance at life. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for sticking with my first attempt at a video essay. I love Armored Core 6 and I hope that came across to you. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts on the game, and if you enjoyed what I'm doing, please do leave a like or subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Next time I'm going to be talking about my experiences with EVE Online, a game which I never thought I'd ever play, let alone come to love. I've been Gadget, thank you for watching, and good night.